Welcome back. It's Pat and Joe's show. Been a while, like a month, I think, that I've seen you. I've missed you, Pat. Hope everything's been well. Hopefully, people who listen, the 10, 20 people, eventually going to be thousands, didn't miss us too much either. But there's plenty to talk about. I think there's two things I want to talk about today. Both, I think, pretty interesting, both pretty big news. I guess first, we'll quickly just say, actually, it's not too much to really say, but the Pandora Papers, maybe we'll talk about that next time. Super interesting, a lot of information. I feel like it hasn't been sifted through completely yet, though. So we'll wait till more of that comes out. But the thing that's, I guess, on probably everyone's mind for the whole week, or until it's fixed, is the debt ceiling, which is, I feel like, getting pretty stressful. There's 2 weeks until, if they can't figure out a way to raise debt ceiling, we could default for the first time ever, which would be pretty catastrophic, I feel, for the economy or for a lot of things. So I guess if you can explain, because you probably know a lot better than me, why what's the situation going on? Why do we need to do this? And then what's the problem with not being able to come up with a solution this time?
So it's kind of wacky, right? Because the way that, and I honestly, I'm going to be partisan for a second, but I have to be truthful. The way the Republican Party treats the debt ceiling whenever there happens to be a Democrat in the White House is they're suddenly like, we're not going to raise the debt ceiling. Suddenly debt and the deficit become, a thing that they care about, that yada, yada, yada. It's important to understand that this is all money that is spent. We've already done whatever we've done in the past. We've spent the money. We have our obligations. We've borrowed. We've spent. The debt ceiling is literally just us retroactively signing off on it. Congress given its okay, which really doesn't make a lot of sense. And so there's no point really in delving into why we do it this way and why it's wrapped up in partisan politics, because as you can see, it's become super dysfunctional and a huge distraction. And like Jer said, risk makes not only just making us look bad, but defaulting on our obligations, which is incredibly bad because
we
there's already a real lack of trust.
We won't be able to borrow money as cheaply, which just has a lot of effects. I guess what seems from my point of view to be one of the things that's making this time not go as smoothly is there's some division among the Democrats. There's kind of always division, I feel like, among Republicans and Democrats. But as far as last week, the Democrats and the, I guess, progressive Democrats that I've been reading about what they're described as haven't really been meeting eye to eye. I think Manchin doesn't want to go more than 1.5 trillion, where someone like AOC and Ilhan Omar want to go with 3.5 trillion. So is that kind of what's preventing it from passing, or would it still have problems even if they were all on the same page?
So what bringing up the infrastructure package, which is what you're talking about, is the whole reason why the Republicans are making the debt ceiling an issue, is because they want to highlight divisions within the Democratic Party and try to tie them together.
Yeah, which the Republicans obviously work, because I just tangled them together.
It works. The Republicans have always been geniuses about messaging and communication, and lo and behold, even people that are tuned in and know what the debt ceiling is and talk about it, suddenly the issues become very confused and very murky, and it almost seems like, these Democrats are spending all this money and we refuse to let them run our country into the ground. So suddenly the issues become confused. Is
there a difference in debt ceiling that's raised? Is it always raised by the same percentage, or are they requesting it to be raised by how much?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, no, it actually is pretty consistently raised. That's kind of built in based off of what you've spent. Sorry about the noise back there, everybody. Consequence of living in a city. But basically, it's always raised a certain amount based off of what we've already done. What the Republicans are trying to say now is we're not going to support the raising of the debt ceiling at all. Democrats, you can unilaterally pass this if you want, but you've got to come up with the specific amount that we're going to raise it by. And the reason they do that is just so they can run attack ads next year during the midterm elections and specifically say Democrats spent X amount of your hard-earned money on frivolous government spending programs, which is complete horseshit because Republican states are the ones that receive a lot of government funding on projects that they need. So
Right.
it's all politics. It's all politics.
Yeah, it's super confusing. Like there's a lot going on. So why did the Democrats then try and get that infrastructure bill last week? If could they have waited until after the debt ceiling was raised or something?
This is a part of a political game that Democrats learned under the Obama administration. The more you let these things dangle, the better chance there is not to find what's wrong with them necessarily, but the greater the opportunity there is for people who are opposed to it to start coming up with messaging and misinformation reasons to make this suddenly unpopular. It happened with the healthcare bill. The individual components of Obama's healthcare package were wildly popular, like keeping kids on their parents' plan and stuff like that. But it gives people the opportunity to start poking holes. So the reason why the Democrats want to pass this now is because they generally have support over it now. It is popular. And also the country is straight up falling apart. Just drive over a bridge and no matter what city or state you live in. And you could definitely tell that at a minimum, we can debate over what and how much or whatever. We all know the country's falling apart.
In every aspect.
That's why they're trying to rush it. And just to put in a little thing, these moderates that are holding out are not doing it out of like principle or whatever. They haven't been clear on what exactly it is they don't like. They're basically trying to leverage and jockey for power and influence. And that's all that the U.S. Senate is ultimately about for some of these people. It's not necessarily for getting the money that their constituents desperately need. Because like I said earlier, red states, you know, people may like living in them because maybe there's low tax burden and, they stay out of our business and blah, blah, blah. But you also don't have very good services in red states.
I think they're generally worse in like death rate, education rate, like
healthcare, infrastructure.
Schooling. There's like 5 things that they're generally just worse off at.
So check how much the state of Mississippi or Alabama or West Virginia, where Joe Manchin is from, need federal funding just in order to maintain the stuff that they need at a basic level.
No, exactly. So back to debt ceiling. Sorry, I got confused with that. What's gonna be needed for the debt ceiling to pass then?
It's either gonna need some Republicans breaking ranks and just voting on an up and down vote, which is what the Democrats would like to do because it's what they did under Trump. Just remember that. Democrats, if you ever say it's both sides are the worst, they're both equal. No, they're not. Democrats cooperate because they don't want the country to be driven over a cliff. Now, I got my complaint for the Democratic Party. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just like rah Democrats, but let's be fair.
No, definitely.
But what they're going to have to do is Chuck Schumer is going to have to exercise a thing called reconciliation, where the Democratic Party is going to have to unilaterally pass the debt ceiling in itself. That is, if no Republicans end up coming out and voting for it.
And do they get to vote, or it has to be within 2 weeks? But I don't understand. Could it happen today or could it happen tomorrow?
Reconciliation takes a very long time to do. It's a complicated series of procedures. And that's why Mitch McConnell he's a smart guy. You may hate him or love him, whatever.
No, he's been around for a while for a reason.
He's been around for a reason. He knows how to work the system. And in the end, Kentucky's going to get their money. And he's going to look good nationally, to Republicans that don't want to see him cooperating with Joe Biden and the Democrats. So it's a win-win for him. So he is going to say, you're going to get no Republican votes, pass it on your own. In the meantime, that means it's going to take longer. It's going to be harder. A lot of is going to be left in doubt, and he scores political points. And then he gets all the Democrats who vote for it on record as increasing the debt ceiling by a certain amount that they have to decide on now manually, as opposed to automatically. And they can use that. All Republicans across the country can use that in attack ads when they run for Congress next year.
Interesting. And I guess these implications, are there local level people worried about any of this, or they don't really have an effect on anything?
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah,
happens.
it's a huge concern because it'll, all of this stuff will affect, the country, not necessarily a regular person in the short term. But while the Democrats are having to figure out the debt ceiling, they necessarily can't be fully focused on infrastructure. They can't be fully focused on what's going on at the border, and the myriad other problems that need to be addressed, including voting rights.
Good point. Well, I just learned a shitload for the last 10 minutes or so. Thank you for informing me, because now I'm going to do my best to inform others, because it's definitely something that's hard to understand, one, and then not the most fun to understand too, but it's super important. So I feel like people should be looking into it and reading about it and knowing really what's going on and how much it can affect.
The key is the money's already spent, guys. This should not be a debate. All right. We can talk about the spending bill with infrastructure coming up. Right. That's a valid debate. Like, honestly, I'm not trying to be rah-rah for one side or the other.
But debt ceiling already spent. Yeah.
This is bullshit. We should just be moving on. We do when it's a Republican president and they cut taxes and then still spend a lot of money. So I don't see why this is a thing only under Democrats.
Well, let's hope it happens. I'm rooting for it. We'll see, because I don't want to see us default. That's like, nope. I feel like some people are like rooting for that. It's like, nah, it's not gonna be good.
That's another thing. Be honest about what you want to see happen. If you just want to see shit burn, then just say that. Don't act like you suddenly care about the national debt now that there's Democrats in power, because you didn't under Trump with his tax reform bill, which was just which is just a tax cut for the rich. All right, with unfunded mandates. Like,
people don't really understand what is happening with these things. They I mean, I'm included in those people. Like, you read a headline and you think you understand, but that's not what's happening.
Nor really should they. We live in a republic. We elect experts to go and do that for us.
Right. And they
have a team of people around them to help them understand what they're doing. And they're supposed to be acting in good faith instead of trying to score political points against each other, which both parties admittedly are guilty of. But when it comes to what we're talking about right now, this is total and utter horseshit that this is in the news. I mean, just look at it. Just look at how it pops up. It only pops up if, like, Obama was in office and now Joe Biden. Like, when did we talk about this for 4 years under Trump?
No, you're right. You're completely right.
We did it. Like, so,
no.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens, Pat. Thank you as always. I'll see you next week. We'll get back into a routine. We'll have more to talk about. I'm thinking the Pandora Papers. I'm hoping some more stuff comes out of that, because that was super interesting.
I read through it yesterday, man. That shit looks wild.
Well, yeah, there's like the biggest leak ever. And every time there's a leak, there's a lot of wild stuff. I think so far, the thing is, so far it seems like everything's been legal, just like not really moral. Of just like Tony Blair dodging taxes, Putin having money all over I think the biggest thing I think that I saw so far is the guy in, I think, Jordan, the prince in Jordan, doing like $400 million in real estate in the UK, and like really it's not a rich country, and he's obviously taking money from his people for himself.
That was the first thing that I think whenever I see this, it's just rich people hiding their money and they're avoiding taxes. When you read deeper, the good point that the article makes, and I'll let people read for themselves, is how it affects criminal enterprises, drug traffickers, gun runners, terrorists. They use this system too. So it's not just about, I'm like, Jared and I aren't going to sit here and just go class warrior on this story and be like, rich people should have to pay they should absolutely have to pay their fair share. That is fucked up enough. But this system also promotes a lot of illegal and illicit activity, including sex traffickers and a lot of other bad guys.
Yeah, which I wouldn't be surprised if these people are connected to them. They're somehow, either we'll find that out later.
The world is, man.
Exactly. Well, we'll talk next time. I'm excited. I'll see you then, Pat. See you guys next time. Love you.